Some films shape history, while others quietly fade away. The 1960s produced cinematic legends, but many hidden gems went overlooked. These 10 incredible films from the 60s broke rules, changed genres, and still hold their power today. Think you've seen all the classics? These forgotten masterpieces will prove you wrong. Shock Corridor, 1963. Ambitious journalist Johnny Barrett gets himself committed to a mental asylum, hoping to solve a murder there from the inside. As he interacts with disturbed inmates, the line between reality and madness blurs. The film unfolds as a tense psychological drama, exposing the traumas and dark secrets of both the patients and the society that shaped them. Why it's impressive today. Shock Corridor was bold for its time in tackling taboo issues, racism, war, PTSD, through lurid melodrama. Initially dismissed as exploitation, it's now praised for Fuller's audacious storytelling and striking visuals. The film's unflinching look at America's social ills remains relevant, and its hallucinatory sequences and daring subject matter have influenced later filmmakers. Although it never had mainstream success, Shock Corridor stands as a powerful, ahead-of-its-time commentary packaged in a gripping noir horror hybrid. Robinson Crusoe, on Mars, 1964. This science fiction adventure reimagines the Robinson Crusoe tale on the Red Planet. After a spacecraft crash, astronaut Kit Draper, Paul Mantee, becomes stranded alone on Mars with only a monkey as company. He struggles to survive the harsh Martian landscape, finding ways to obtain water, air, and food. In time, he encounters an escaped alien slave, Friday, and together they must evade pursuing extraterrestrial miners. Why it's impressive today. Though overshadowed by splashier 60s sci-fi like 2001, A Space Odyssey, this film offers a more intimate, survival-focused story. Its innovative special effects and realistic approach to space survival were ahead of their time. Robinson Crusoe on Mars is an underappreciated gem that blends ingenuity and optimism, qualities that inspire modern space survival tales. The film's earnest depiction of isolation and friendship in an alien world still resonates, making it a cult favorite among science fiction enthusiasts. Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, 1969. This frank comedy drama follows two affluent California couples navigating the late 1960s sexual revolution. After Bob and Carol attend a New Age retreat, they decide to embrace total honesty and free love, confessing extramarital dalliances to each other. They even propose a partner-swapping experiment with their more traditional friends, Ted and Alice, leading to moments of humor, tension, and soul-searching. Why it's impressive today. Arriving in the wake of counterculture hits, this film was initially met with mixed reactions, but it brilliantly satirizes the era's changing morals. Mazursky's insightful script captured the confusion between old conventions and new freedoms in a way that feels authentic. Today, the film stands as a time capsule of late 60s America, examining themes of marriage, communication, and sexual honesty with wit and empathy. Its ending subverts expectations, gently poking fun at its characters' experiment while affirming the need for love and understanding. Often overshadowed by edgier New Hollywood classics, Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice remains a smart, funny portrait of adults struggling to redefine relationships in a rapidly changing world. The Boston Strangler, 1968. Based on the real serial murders that terrorized Boston in the early 1960s, this crime thriller stars Tony Curtis in a career-defining turn as Albert DeSalvo, the prime suspect. The film's first half plays as a procedural, with police, led by Henry Fonda, racing to stop the killer. In a daring shift, the story then pivots to DeSalvo's perspective once he's caught, delving into his possible split personality and the intense interrogations used to extract a confession. Why it's impressive today. Technically and narratively bold, The Boston Strangler used innovative split-screen mosaics and shock editing to mirror a city's panic and the killer's fractured mind. Tony Curtis's against-type performance as DeSalvo is chilling and empathetic at once, helping elevate the film beyond exploitative true crime. Upon release, it faced moral scrutiny and a lukewarm reception, but decades later, it's recognized as an expertly crafted thriller. By blending noir style with true crime drama, the movie remains both a fascinating document of its era's anxieties and a precursor to modern psychological serial killer. Ride the High Country, 1962. This elegiac Western teams two aging icons, Randolph Scott and Joel McCrea, as old friends hired to transport gold from a remote mountain town. One man secretly plans to steal the loot, while the other aims to uphold his code of honor. Along the journey, they rescue a young woman from a rowdy gang and face a moral showdown. The film unfolds as a meditation on the closing of the Old West and the values of a bygone era. Why it's impressive today. Peckinpah's second film, Ride the High Country, didn't make a big splash in 1962, but it later gained recognition as a classic of the genre. Its gorgeous cinematography and reflective tone signaled a new kind of end of the West Western. The film's two veteran stars play against their cowboy hero images, bringing depth to themes of integrity and redemption. Over time, critics have hailed it as Peckinpah's first masterpiece and one of the great westerns of the 60s. What was initially an overlooked release, MGM gave it limited support, is now celebrated for its humanism and poignant sense of an era's end, a film full of elegiac power that set the stage for Peckinpah's later, more notorious works. Spiderbaby, 1967. Equal parts horror and dark comedy, this low-budget cult film centers on the Mary family. Adult siblings suffering from a strange regressive disease that makes them act like violent children. Lon Chaney Jr. plays their loyal caretaker, who tries to keep the family's homicidal antics in check. When distant relatives and lawyers arrive at the decaying mansion intent on claiming the estate, chaos erupts as the feral siblings play with the intruders in deadly ways. Why it's impressive today. Spiderbaby was released to almost no notice, but it eventually achieved cult status for its offbeat tone. The film daringly mixes creepy subject matter with pitch-black humor, prefiguring the horror comedies that would become popular decades later. Chaney's sympathetic performance anchors the madness, and the film's campy yet unsettling atmosphere has influenced filmmakers like Rob Zombie. Though extremely obscure in its day, Spiderbaby now delights cult horror fans with its originality, a maddest story ever told that still feels unique in the genre. Blast of Silence, 1961. This gritty indie noir follows Frankie Bono, played by director Alan Barron, a lonely hitman from Cleveland who comes to New York at Christmas time for a job. As he stalks his target through shadowy Manhattan streets, Frankie grapples with isolation and the stirrings of conscience. A hard-boiled voiceover narration, spoken in second person, drives the story, pulling us into the killer's troubled psyche as the hit spirals toward an inevitable, violent climax. Why it's impressive today? Blast of Silence was a shoestring production that initially slipped under the radar, but it's now hailed as an unappreciated low-budget gem of film noir's last days. Shot guerrilla style in authentic NYC locations, the movie oozes atmosphere. You can almost feel the cold wind in its deserted streets and jazz clubs. Its existential tone and inventive narration were ahead of their time, influencing later neo-noirs and hitman character studies. Overshadowed in an era when noir was out of vogue, Blast of Silence has since been rediscovered by cinephiles for its stark style and emotional punch, standing tall among noir classics. The Americanization of Emily, 1964. Set in London on the eve of D-Day, this biting satire stars James Garner as Charlie Madison, a Navy officer who proudly proclaims himself a coward. His job is to procure luxury goods, and women, for top brass to keep them happy. Julie Andrews co-stars as Emily, a war widow who falls for Charlie despite his unheroic philosophy. When an admiral schemes to make the first American fatality on D-Day a propaganda hero, Charlie is unwittingly chosen for the honor, putting his live and let live ideals to the ultimate test amid the Normandy invasion. Why it's impressive today. Written by Paddy Chayefsky, the film daringly skewered militaristic hero worship at a time when Hollywood rarely questioned WW2 patriotism. It flopped at release, coming out the same year as the similarly themed but flashier Dr. Strangelove, yet many now consider it one of the great anti-war comedies. Garner delivers one of his finest performances, charming and cutting in equal measure, and the script's witty, cynical take on the folly of glorifying war feels as sharp as ever. Over the years, the film has gained a cult following, appreciated for its intelligent dialogue and ahead-of-its-time message. In an age still grappling with the true costs of war, the Americanization of Emily remains bracingly relevant and darkly funny. 1, 2, 3, 1961. This rapid-fire Cold War comedy, filmed just before the Berlin Wall went up, stars James Cagney as a Coca-Cola executive in West Berlin trying to save his job and reputation. When his boss's ditzy daughter secretly marries a communist from East Berlin, Cagney's harried capitalist must scramble to convert the young radical into an acceptable son-in-law, all in 48 hours before the boss arrives. What ensues is a breakneck farce involving secret police, defectors, and endless one-liners as East and West collide. Why it's impressive today. Billy Wilder set out to make the fastest picture in the world, and the result is a mile-a-minute satire packed with gags about capitalism, Soviet bureaucracy, and American hustle. Initially, 1, 2, 3 suffered from bad timing. The sudden construction of the Berlin Wall during production gave the film a darker tinge and hurt its box office prospects. But in hindsight, it stands as an underrated gem in Wilder's oeuvre. The film's relentless energy and Cagney's tour-de-force comedic performance keep it hilarious, and many of its jabs at political absurdity still land. Modern audiences can appreciate it as a brilliant time capsule farce, a comedy that moves as briskly as history itself. The President's Analyst, 1967. This wild political satire follows psychiatrist Sidney Schaefer, James Coburn, who was hired to be the U.S. president's personal therapist. Sworn to secrecy and under constant surveillance, the analyst grows paranoid and eventually flees. His attempt at a normal life is thwarted as every spy agency, from the CIA and FBI to Soviet and British operatives, chases him down, fearing the secrets in his head. The film's climax unveils a surprising villain behind all the espionage mayhem. Why it's impressive today. The President's Analyst is a zany product of 1960s anxieties, spoofing everything from Cold War paranoia to the phone company. Its humor was edgy for its day, and notably, the film foretold something very accurate about mass surveillance decades ahead. The prescient twist involving a telecommunications conspiracy feels even more relevant in the era of big tech and data privacy. Initially overlooked amid flashier spy spoofs, this movie has since earned cult status for its razor-sharp wit and fearless satire. It lampoons both the government and counterculture with equal gusto, and Coburn's dry charm carries the absurd adventure. In an age of constant surveillance and mistrust, this forgotten comedy's gleefully paranoid vision seems strikingly up to date. The Incident, 1967. Late one night in the Bronx, two young thugs, a terrifying Tony Musante and a debuting Martin Sheen, board a subway train and hold the car's passengers hostage through psychological torment. The diverse group, including an elderly Jewish couple, a pair of soldiers, a black couple, and others, are forced to endure humiliation and violence as the train hurtles in darkness. With no authorities in sight, each passenger must confront their own fear and moral judgment. Will anyone risk themselves to stop the madness? Why it's impressive today. The Incident is an intense, hard-hitting thriller that still packs a gut punch. Shot in black and white with almost documentary realism, it creates claustrophobic tension that doesn't let up. At a time when such blunt depictions of urban violence were rare, the film bravely examined the bystander effect. Ordinary people's reluctance to intervene, even as evil unfolds before them. Modern viewers will find its social commentary on apathy and courage strikingly prescient. Overshadowed by bigger studio fare in 1967, The Incident has since been recognized as a taut precursor to gritty 70s cinema. Its unflinching look at moral failure in the face of terror remains absolutely terrifying and thought-provoking, ensuring the film's relevance in any era of urban unease. Petulia, 1968. This stylistically adventurous drama stars Julie Christie as Petulia, a free-spirited San Francisco socialite stuck in an abusive marriage, and George C. Scott as Archie, a middle-aged doctor disillusioned after divorce. Their lives intersect in the summer of love. Petulia pursues Archie for an affair, and through nonlinear flashbacks and vignettes, we gradually learn the dark reasons behind her desperation. Set against the backdrop of hippie-era San Francisco, with real Haight-Ashbury scenes and even a Janis Joplin cameo, the film pieces together a poignant story of two lost souls seeking meaning amid the chaos of 1960s change. Why it's impressive today? Petulia was misunderstood by audiences in 1968, but today it's hailed as a relatively overlooked new Hollywood gem that authentically captures the vibe shift of the late 60s. Lester's inventive editing, starting the narrative in the middle and scrambling time, was daring, mirroring the character's emotional confusion. The film is a vivid time capsule of the era. Anyone interested in 60s history and cinema should be required to watch Petulia to see Haight-Ashbury captured at its hippie height. Beyond its style, the movie explores themes of loneliness, domestic abuse, and generational disconnect with surprising depth. Overshadowed by flashier hits like The Graduate, Petulia has gained renewed appreciation as Richard Lester's underrated masterpiece, valued for its compassion and its trippy, innovative form that influences modern indie dramas. Target's 1968. In this chilling thriller produced by Roger Corman, two storylines converge. An aging horror movie star, Boris Karloff, essentially playing himself, is contemplating retirement, feeling that old cinematic monsters no longer scare people. Meanwhile, a clean-cut young man in suburban Los Angeles quietly amasses an arsenal of guns, and then goes on a deadly shooting rampage, eventually perching atop a drive-in theater screen. The climax brings the horror icon face-to-face with a very real modern terror during a tense standoff at the drive-in. Why it's impressive today? Target's was shockingly ahead of its time. Inspired by the 1966 Texas Tower Massacre, it was one of the first films to grapple with random mass shootings in America. The film failed at the box office. It opened shortly after the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy, which made its subject even more raw. But in retrospect, Bogdanovich's debut is lauded as a continually prescient film about real-life atrocities, far more horrifying than anything Hollywood could invent. The clever dual narrative contrasts manufactured horror with true violence, delivering a meta-commentary that's only become more relevant. Today, Target's is recognized as a cult classic and an eerie prophecy of gun violence in the U.S., making it an unforgettable piece of 60s cinema that still unnerves audiences. Failafe, 1964. This Cold War suspense drama depicts a nightmare scenario. A technical glitch accidentally sends American bombers on an irreversible course to nuke Moscow. The U.S. President, Henry Fonda, and his advisors scramble in panic, urgently communicating with Soviet leaders to prevent all-out atomic war. In claustrophobic war rooms and command bunkers, moral dilemmas abound. How far will the president go to convince the Soviets of the mistake and stop Armageddon? The film ratchets up unbearable tension as the clock ticks toward doomsday. Why it's impressive today? Released the same year as Kubrick's satirical Dr. Strangelove. Strangelove, this film was overshadowed and underseen, with Kubrick even maneuvering to delay Failsafe's release so his movie would hit first. Lacking humor, Failafe is a stark, ultra-realistic thriller that many found absolutely terrifying, a gem from the 60s that never got its due. Decades later, it's easier to appreciate Lumet's craft. The film's intense close-ups, minimalist sound design, and Fonda's grave performance create almost unbearable suspense. The nerve-wracking phone call between the president and Soviet premier remains one of the most gripping sequences in any 60s film. Failafe may have been a box office loser in 1964, but its chilling examination of technological failure and military brinkmanship feels timeless. In an age of renewed nuclear anxieties, the film's grim message still hits like a punch, proving that serious, human-focused storytelling can be just as impactful as satire. Carnival of Souls, 1962. After surviving a car accident, a young woman named Mary, Candace Hilligoss, moves to a new town, but finds herself increasingly haunted by eerie phenomena. She's stalked by a pale, ghoulish man and drawn to an abandoned lakeside pavilion. As Mary struggles with these visions and a sense of alienation, no one else can see the specters. The film builds to a Twilight Zone-style twist. Why it's impressive today? Carnival of Souls was an ultra-low-budget indie that went largely unnoticed on release, only gaining acclaim years later. Now regarded as a cult horror classic, it's praised for achieving an atmosphere of profound dread with minimal resources. Director Herc Harvey uses dreamlike visuals, surreal organ music, and the stark black and white photography of deserted Utah locations to create a nightmare that creeps under your skin. Modern horror filmmakers have cited it as an influence for its eerie tone and twist ending. What makes the film enduringly relevant is its theme of existential limbo. Mary's feeling of drifting, ignored by the living, still chills audiences. Carnival of Souls proves that when it comes to horror, less can often be much, much more, delivering striking, eerie atmosphere on a shoestring. Once forgotten, it's now taught in film schools for its artistry and stands as a testament to creative vision outside Hollywood. The Hill, 1965. Set in a British Army stockade in North Africa during World War II, this intense drama stars Sean Connery, in a drastic departure from James Bond, as Trooper Roberts, one of several prisoners subjected to brutal discipline. The camp's sadistic staff sergeant forces the men to repeatedly climb an artificial hill under the desert sun as punishment. Tensions mount between the abused prisoners and the cruel authorities, leading to acts of defiance and a tragic confrontation that questions military justice. Why it's impressive today. The Hill is a brutal, uncompromising examination of authority and human dignity. Shot in stark black and white, it feels as suffocating as the prison itself. Connery delivers one of his finest performances, shedding his suave image to portray a man driven to the brink. The film's unflinching look at institutional cruelty and abuse of power was ahead of its time. Because it was so unlike the flashy Bond films, many Connery fans ignored it on release, making it almost forgotten in the 60s. However, critics now hail it as one of Lumet's great works, citing its moral complexity and searing intensity. In an era when we still grapple with questions of how institutions treat individuals, The Hill's gut-punch impact and message about retaining humanity under tyranny remain as powerful and relevant as ever. Point Blank, 1967. This stylish crime thriller follows a mysterious man named Walker, Lee Marvin, who is double-crossed and left for dead during a heist. Walker miraculously survives and embarks on a relentless quest through Los Angeles' criminal underworld to retrieve the $93,000 he's owed and to get revenge on the partner and wife who betrayed him. As he confronts mob bosses up the chain, the film takes on an almost dreamlike fractured quality, blurring whether Walker is real or a vengeful specter. Why it's impressive today. Point Blank broke the mold for American crime films. It introduced avant-garde flair, nonlinear editing, bold color design, long silences punctuated by sudden violence, essentially blending hard-boiled noir with European New Wave influences. While it earned critical praise, Pauline Kael called it intermittently dazzling, it puzzled many 1967 viewers with its time-jumping structure and existential tone. In hindsight, the film was far ahead of its time. Its DNA can be seen in modern neo-noirs and action cinema. Director Steven Soderbergh has cited it as a major inspiration. Lee Marvin's icy, minimalist performance and Borman's experimental approach give Point Blank a cool, timeless edge. Once overlooked in the shadow of flashier 67 hits, it's now rightly celebrated as one of the decade's most influential thrillers, a movie that pushed the genre forward and still feels fresh and uncompromising today. The Swimmer, 1968. In this unique suburban drama, Burt Lancaster plays Ned Merrill, a seemingly successful middle-aged man who decides to swim home through all the pools in his affluent Connecticut neighborhood. Pool by pool, as he drops in on old friends and acquaintances, subtle clues hint that Ned's life isn't as perfect as it appears. With each swim, painful truths about his past, broken relationships, lost fortunes, surface, turning his idyllic summer day journey into an increasingly haunting odyssey of denial and regret. Why it's impressive today. The Swimmer was too offbeat for many upon release, but it has since gained cult acclaim as a profound American fable. The premise sounds whimsical, yet the film gradually peels back the facade of American prosperity to reveal deep loneliness and failure. Burt Lancaster delivers a brave, vulnerable performance, carrying Ned from charming confidence to anguished realization. Critics in recent decades have reevaluated the film's artistry. Roger Ebert lauded it as a strange, stylized work, a brilliant and disturbing one. Its blend of social satire, surreal metaphor, and emotional punch feels even more relevant in today's era of suburban angst and midlife crises. The Swimmer stands as a one-of-a-kind cinematic journey. Once overshadowed by 1968's bigger hits, it now rightfully holds a place as an exceptional and deeply affecting piece of 1960s American cinema. Seconds, 1966. This unsettling blend of science fiction and paranoid thriller follows Arthur Hamilton, John Randolph, a middle-aged New York banker trapped in a joyless life. When a secret organization offers him a second life, complete with surgically crafted new face and identity, Arthur fakes his death and is reborn as Tony Wilson, Rock Hudson, a younger man with hedonistic freedom in California. But as he attempts to start over, Tony finds himself grappling with emptiness, deception, and the haunting consequences of abandoning one's past. Why it's impressive today. Seconds flopped in 1966. Audiences weren't ready to see beloved matinee idol Rock Hudson in such a bizarre, cerebral film. Yet with time, it's been recognized as perhaps Frankenheimer's masterpiece, one of the most haunting American films to come out of the 1960s. The movie's striking black and white cinematography, by James Wong Howe, employs fisheye lenses and distorted angles that make the viewer feel Arthur saw Tony's disorientation. The result is a nightmarish vision of the American dream curdled into a Kafkaesque horror. Critics now admire Seconds for capturing the mid-60s identity crisis of middle-class men on the cusp of societal upheaval. It's also praised for Hudson's vulnerable performance, which in retrospect parallels the actor's own hidden struggles. Criminally underseen in its day, Seconds is now heralded as a ahead-of-its-time cult classic that brilliantly fuses film, noir, sci-fi, and body horror. A film that caught the mood of an America on the cusp of the summer of love, yet remains eerily resonant in our age of endless self-reinvention.